First one is revenue, top line revenue. Sometimes people say, like I made $1 million last year because your practice top line revenue was that. Obviously you didn't take that home, but revenue is the first one. Practice overhead is the second one. That's all the expenses to keep your practice going, except paying the doctor and your debt. The third one is debt, any practice debt you have. The fourth one is taxes. And the fifth one are your living expenses. So just think of the amount of money you need each month to be comfortable. So those are the 5 drivers to really get to the bottom of understanding your income.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao, and I hope you're having a wonderful day or evening whenever you're listening to this episode or watching this episode on the podcasting networks or even on YouTube. I want to remind everybody about my sponsors who allow me to come to your inbox every single day. I want to thank both CallRail and Dental Intelligence for their continued support. I also want to remind everybody about my event in just a few short weeks. Supercharge Your Dental Practice is in Fort Lauderdale, September 26th and 27th at Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale, where we focus on the business and marketing side of one's practice. We've got some amazing speakers. The keynote is Steve Rasner. We've got Rich Maddow and Paul Goodman and a lot of other speakers. You can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com, and up to the end of this month, you can use $100. You can get $100 savings by using the code RAVING, R-A-V-I-N-G, on the coupon code, again, to save $100 on your registration. Today's episode, my guest is Travis Slade, and we're going to be talking about various things related to the financial aspect of your practice. Now, a lot of dentists look at their collections or production numbers and assume that what they're earning, but that's rarely the case. In this episode, we're going to walk through the 4 numbers that actually determine take-home income: revenue, overhead, debt, and personal spending. This is important because it's easy to feel like you're actually making good money without realizing how much is actually leaking through high expenses and lifestyle creep. So understanding these numbers will help you make better decisions, whether it's hiring new associates, investing in marketing, or just figuring out how much you can safely take home each month. And I'm excited to dive into those topics with Travis. So Travis is a dedicated CPA with over a decade of experience helping dental professionals navigate the complex financial challenges of owning and operating a dental practice. His journey into the world of dental accounting began with firsthand exposure, spending a year working alongside his brother in a dental practice. Immersed in the day-to-day struggles of hiring staff, managing patient satisfaction, and tackling financial decisions, Travis saw the unique demands dentists face. This experience ignited his passion for supporting dental professionals. Now, the founder of Uluru Advisors, Travis is on a mission to provide dentists with the tools, insights, and confidence needed to make sound financial decisions. You have to file your taxes. Why not use the tax preparation process to get insanely helpful insights into your practice? He is committed to making a meaningful impact on the dental community by delivering tailored support and helping dentists maximize their professional potential. Travis is deeply invested in the dental industry, and he is passionate about empowering dentists to build healthy practices while maintaining financial clarity. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Travis Slade. Travis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to dive into the topics that we want to talk about. I think being a practice owner like myself, I think a lot of these were great things I was wondering when I was in practice. So again, I'm excited to get started here. But just to begin with, talk a little bit about yourself and kind of how you help dental practices who you're working with.
Yeah. So we do, at our firm, we handle the core problem of filing your taxes, keeping your books clean. But because we're doing that, the process of doing that, we get a lot of insights into your business. So we try to turn that tax filing preparation process that you have to do, bookkeeping, all the stuff that you have to do, and use it for your good. How can you empower that information for you to make good decisions? We view that process as being able to give you a really good radiograph into your practice. Let's give you really good visibility. Where's the decay? Where's the stuff that's going on, and make that apparent for you as a practice owner.
Got it. And you work, you're based in Arizona, if I remember correctly, and you have a lot of offices on the West Coast, correct, who work with you?
Correct. Yeah. So right now, a lot of our offices are West Coast. We have some on the East Coast. I think we're in 9 states or so right now.
Got it. So I think one of the big, I know you gave me a select list of questions here, but one of the ones I really liked was there are 5 financial drivers every practice owner should know. Can you review those with the listeners and viewers?
Yeah. So these 5 things I'll talk about kind of quickly, but these 5 things really determine how you think about how much money you make. Falls into these 5 buckets. And like you mentioned, I worked a year working with my brother who owned a dental practice. And I'll never forget when I was talking to him one time about like how much money he makes. And I remember he was like, kind of got pissed. Like, I don't even know how much money I make. Like, like and I was not like, what do you mean you don't know how much money you make? Like, it's on your tax return or, but like there as a business owner, sometimes you really don't know, like, how much do I make and why does it matter? And, at the end of the day, what are you trying to accomplish with your money and understanding that? So these 5 things kind of help distill that answer of like, how much money do you make and where are the problems, after that. But first one is revenue, top line revenue. Sometimes people say, I made $1 million last year because your practice top line revenue was that. Obviously you didn't take that home, but revenue is the first one. Practice overhead is the second one. That's all the expenses to keep your practice going, except paying the doctor and your debt. The third one is debt, any practice debt you have. The fourth one is taxes. And the fifth one are your living expenses. So just think of the amount of money you need each month to be comfortable. We're not going crazy, but just comfortable living expenses. So those are the 5 drivers to really get to the bottom of understanding your income. And there's different things that happen at each of those numbers to give you insights and strategy on what you should be doing better.
A lot of that, and that's great information. I guarantee a lot of the doctors, practice owners out there don't know all that information. And, I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank. I've referred to that many times on this podcast. But one of the things they tell you when you're on Shark Tank, you have to know your numbers. And especially when I talk to dentists, it's funny, they don't know their numbers. And it's interesting to see because without knowing those numbers, there's no way to know if you have a profitable practice, a practice that's declining. There are so many of things that you may not know or may not realize unless you know your numbers really well.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely power in the numbers. And I think as a small business owner, as like a dental practice owner, sometimes it's just helpful to know, like, after all those numbers, you get to like how much money you have extra at the end of the month, right? Like, are you living the lifestyle you want? Are you saving, preparing for retirement, like accomplishing these goals that you want? And all of the money kind of flows through all these expenses. And if you don't really understand where it's all going, it's hard to, make a difference in how you live your life and accomplishing kind of your long-term financial goals.
So I want to specifically talk about a couple of them. So I think number one was top line revenue. And, that's obviously a very misleading number. I'm assuming that's going to be practice collections, really, is that revenue number, okay? So that number, it can be very misleading because it has nothing to do with how much a dentist makes. So can you talk about why that's such a misleading number for dentists?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, if you're a dentist, a lot of times you think in terms of production, right? Because that's, how much dentistry am I doing? But you obviously don't collect all of that. But I think it doesn't account for the expenses. It doesn't account for profitability and those kinds of things. But it's still a very important number. Like you need to have your eye on that top line number. I usually like to think of that revenue number in terms of a daily production number, meaning, because I think, most practices should have like a daily production goal. How much should I be producing each day? And then that can translate into ultimately what you collect at the end of the year. But that's when we do our like cash projections, and when we go into details with this with our clients, it starts with a daily production number, and how am I going to change that number to change ultimately my bottom line.
Got it. Yeah. And I think every practice, if they need to have goals, you have to know how much you need to produce to make money. And yes, there's a daily goal, and I don't want practices to really worry about, hey, we didn't make goal today. As long as you make goal for the month, I think that's the most important thing. You may have one day when you're really good, and you may have one day where you're not so good. But that number, I know practices, I know owners who literally stress about their daily number. I'm like, just make your monthly goal and you're okay. Get there some way and you'll be in good shape.
Well, I think, sorry to cut you off. I think the reason I like the daily number is like sometimes you can show like, hey, if you're averaging 5,000 a day in production, and you can see like, hey, if it goes to $5,200 a day, and you see like, oh, that gives me an extra $20,000 at the end of the year, that just means I need to see one more emergency a day, or one surface filling, or like you can like digest it into like, I just need to do a little bit more here or there, fill in the cracks. And then you can see at the end of the year, you'll have significant improvement in certain areas.
No, I agree 100% with that. I also want to talk about overhead, because overhead's a big issue in the industry. Some of the practices' overheads are enormous. There's offices I know that have up to 75 or 80% in their overhead, which is, if you think about it, they're making 20 cents on the dollar, which is ridiculous. So can you talk about some where you think the ideal overhead breakdown is? Obviously, how much is rent, how much is expenses, supplies, those types of things. And then I'm sure there are ones that there's really numbers that dentists aren't aware of, or expenses that they aren't aware of that they need to pay a little bit more attention to.
Yeah. So I will say this: the first, when we talk about overhead, the two caveats I would think of first is the number one thing that will improve your overhead is your revenue. Meaning, if you have higher revenue, usually your overhead percentages get lower, and it's very common to see some doctors get into a practice. Maybe they buy a big practice and they don't maintain the revenue that it was having, and now their overhead is out of whack. And it's all because their top line revenue saw a dip. And so that could be an issue. And I think that's like, when I think of overhead, it is important to know like, what kind of practice do you have? And there are some large practices. Like if you have 10 ops and you got a practice with 3 associates, like you're not going to take that to a one doctor practice. Like you have a big ship and you have to keep that afloat. And if you don't keep it going, your overhead will just start to crunch you. And it's not a matter of like cutting back on supplies. It's a matter of your top line. So that's a big thing I see a lot when it comes to looking at your overhead. But there's a few, we're talking GP practice. Like most specialties are closer to like 50% of revenue. They're all a little bit different, but for a specialist, close to 50% of revenue is a good rule of thumb. For a GP, you want to try to be at that 60%, maybe you get up to 70% for an overhead ratio. But I like, I'll give you some high level numbers. So staff wages, for years, consultants were always saying, you want that to be at 25% of revenue. Realistically, like in the environment we're at right now, like 30% of revenue would be a good place to be for staff wages, for a GP practice. The rest, everything else, you kind of want to be at 30% too. So there's kind of this good rule of thumb, like staff be at 30%, everything else be at 30%. But inside of that 30%, people always say get your supplies close to 5 or 6% of revenue. Lab fees are going to vary depending on if you have an in-house milling unit, but those are going to be around 5%. Facility, your rent is going to be between 5 and 10%. And then everything else, will be around, I'm not adding up the math on all this, but 5 or 10%. And then marketing, right? If you are in a growth state, spending up to 3% of your revenue on marketing is not a crazy number, which is a lot. But like it depends where you're at with your growth and marketing. But marketing could be all the way up to 3 or 5% if you're very aggressively trying to grow.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you on that. You know, when I was in practice, when I bought my practice, I had a lot of debt. And you obviously pay interest on the debt, and what you don't realize is that that's not taxable. I mean, it doesn't. You can't use it as a write-off. So you're actually going to suffer during those years you have massive debt, because again, that's profit that you're basically just losing, and you're still paying taxes on it. So you don't realize that until you actually have it happen to yourself. So can you talk about debt as a problem for dental practices? How much debt is good debt? How much debt is bad debt? I mean, because there's good debt and bad debt. So can you talk about some of the things related to debt as well?
Yeah. So debt, that's a great point about, debt, that, you don't get a tax write-off for it. But yeah, so as a general rule of thumb, if you're buying a GP practice, people always talk about, practice will cost 80% of revenue. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors that come into it, but that's like the back of the napkin calculation that people always use. If you just think about that number, if you're buying a practice, that means your debt makes up 80% of your annual revenue. That is what I would say where you want to max out. So if you look at your total annual revenue and your total debt, you don't want to go above that 80% mark. Now, sometimes you might go a little bit higher if it's a really good practice, maybe 90%, but you want to try to get that down into the like 20 to 60% of your annual revenue should be your goal for where you want your debt to be. We would call that healthy. If your debt is less than 20% of your annual revenue, then you're the healthiest you could be.
Got it. And then what is, when someone's looking into buying a practice or starting a practice, do you have a general rule of thumb into how much debt is too much to take on? Obviously, when you have debt, there's a monthly number you have to pay back to the bank. It's called I call it the monthly nut, that that every month, regardless of whether you're practicing or not, that money is owed to the practice, owed to the bank. So when someone's starting up, is there a number you try to stay up below? Obviously, if you're starting up, you don't have any patients, and you still have to come up with a way to pay for that. So I'm just curious the way you kind of talk to practices about taking debt on, and even for growth. I mean, you want to grow your practice, you have to spend money on marketing. There are some practices who take on debt to be able to do that. So again, any suggestions there for people listening? Yeah,
my startups are a whole nother beast on debt to income ratio, because there's no income, right? So it's just massive amounts of debt. With all of these, there's these rules. I just threw out some rules of thumb of you want your debt to be 20 to 60% of annual revenue or whatever. At the end of the day, it's all a bunch of crap. What really matters is, can you make it cash flow? How does it impact your cash flow? And can you make sense of that? And so if I'm starting a practice and I have a client who's starting a practice in a very Newport Beach, a very high-end area, he has a very large startup loan, but his projections are, he's high-end service, and it should be cash flowing pretty quickly, right? And as long as we have that projection and that it will cash flow, same thing with if you're going to take out a loan for a marketing campaign, you should have an idea on how much revenue do I need to bring in for it to make sense. So it kind of comes back to a global cash flow. Can you afford that debt? And I get asked one of the most common questions I get asked from my clients is hey, I want to buy this laser and it's $30,000 and there's financing, can I afford it? And it's we look at their cash projection, and it's ultimately going to come out of their bottom line and might not add new revenue, but they have the room to afford it. So it just depends on your situation and specifically what your cash projection looks like.
Got it. What about personal spending? There's I guess I don't want to say stereotype. Dentists like to live a really good lifestyle in general, and a lot of times they overspend on the personal side to make them look better than they are. I know a lot of people in the industry who do that, and I don't want to say they show it off, but you're very aware of the things that they have. Can you talk about, do you feel there's pressure there because they're being a dentist to look successful? Does that sabotage their health, the financial health of their life and their practice? So just talk about the personal spending side of things, cars, homes, those types of things, vacations.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I've had a lot of clients where we've gone through four of the numbers, or three of the numbers, right? The revenue, overhead, debt. And I have a lot of clients where all of that is really good and it's really healthy, and they have, good overhead numbers, good, the debt is not out of whack, it's a good interest rate, and they're making good money. But we get to this lifestyle component, and it's, they're making $500,000 a year and they're spending $600,000 a year. And that just doesn't work. Like, you're going to feel stressed if that happens, right? And so this is a component of, everything else could be working well in your life, but if your lifestyle is too high, it can add a lot of stress. And I think the biggest place that I start with when I think about living expenses is knowing how much you are spending. So with all of our clients, we'll ask them, we're not micromanaging like their personal budgets for things, but we want to know how much they need each month to live, and we want to make sure that the practice can support that. And that process is insightful for them. If it's a new client, it's not that difficult to figure out how much you're spending each month on average on your credit cards and mortgage and things like that. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize I was spending $25,000 a month, right? Like, okay, well, let's start there. Let's just see what the number is, and then see, how that impacts everything else that's flowing through from your practice. And that's where I think the biggest starting point is, from at least an accounting perspective, is just let's figure out what the number is, and then. It's hard for me as an accountant to get into the, I can't change your psychology, but probably one of my favorite books is The Psychology of Money. I'm not sure if you've read that book, but it's awesome just about understanding what is enough when it comes to money and what that number is. And it is unfortunate that a lot of dentists, feel a need to support a certain lifestyle. But I also get it. I saw my brother, it's hard to get into dental school. Dental school, they beat you down, and then it's hard to get a job. You sacrifice so much. I have a brother-in-law who's in medical school right now, and I'm like, dude, I would just never want to do that. It's so much sacrifice. You make it out at the end. It's you want to feel rewarded a little bit, I think, and it's hard to kind of turn that off.
No, that makes sense. That really does. So I know there was something you wanted to bring up, and I'm curious what it is. Talk about the financial matrix.
Yeah, so this is it's a calculator that we have that takes, so all the numbers we talked about basically help you determine what your break even is. So people talk about what's your practice break even? What did you refer to it, Dr. Tao?
The bare ass minimum.
Bare ass minimum, yeah. So all of these numbers, and inside of your living expenses is taxes. So we factor taxes. All of these numbers factor into what's your break even. What do I need to collect each month in my practice to have all of these numbers work? And so we have this matrix where we have a free calculator. You can get it in the show notes to get this. But really, doing a little bit of homework to know what these numbers are, and knowing, are you in balance? What's your break even? And are you there? And if not, how far away are you? And usually if you're not there, it's a matter of figuring out how much more money do I need to produce each month for there to start being balance in the practice, in my life.
Got it. With your clients you currently have, you've been in the industry for a while. You obviously have been a CPA for a long time as well. What are some common financial traps that you see dentists fall into?
Well, I think the most common one is trying to how do I say this? Like, everyone has a different mentality around taxes and how much they should pay in taxes. And I think a lot of my clients feel like they shouldn't pay as much as they do pay in taxes. We all feel like that, but your dentists are really in this tax bracket where Congress is making all their money on you. Like they, the headlines are, really grab the lower income people. The like ultra wealthy people have these different investment vehicles and they make their money in a different way. It's not ordinary income, and so it's not taxed in the same way. Like, it feels like a lot of the burden is falling on the income bracket that dentists are in. And so they pay a lot in taxes. And there's often a mentality of like getting out of taxes, doing sketchy tax things, or just not being prepared for it. It's just like your mentality around taxes, and are you prepared for it? And are you going to pay your taxes, or are you going to try to do something sketchy? That's something that I feel like I see a lot of.
It's funny because obviously if you make money, you have to pay taxes, and dentists make a lot of money. And I hear it a lot. They don't want to pay as many taxes just like you did, but then make less money. That's the way it is. If you make money, you got to pay taxes on it.
Yeah, no, it's sad. I mean, there is this, like, you get into a certain tax bracket, and it's like every dollar, and, I have a lot of clients in California, a lot of, state income tax California. Every dollar they make, 50% is going to taxes. And it's like, do I even want to make that extra dollar? Because I'm really only keeping 50 cents, if that, right? So it is kind of a bummer, and I do feel like the tax code is not the greatest for where most dentists land.
Got it. I have two other questions because we're running out of time. So one of the questions is, for those practices that are considering marketing or don't know if they can afford to market, how do you recommend a dentist? Because that should be, you said 3%, I think in upwards of 6% sometimes, or more if you're just starting out, which again, $1 million practice, 6% is $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month. There's very few practices that are spending that much money. So what is your advice to someone who isn't sure if they can spend the money to invest in marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think this comes back to this matrix of like knowing what all these numbers are. And if you're going to spend $5,000 a month in marketing, you should expect a top line result from that, right? And what should that result be, and how soon do you need to see that result? Some marketing takes time, right? Like people talk about SEO, and it takes time to really see results in certain areas and different things. But you should, there should be some kind of projection, accountability in saying, hey, I can do $5,000 a month. I feel confident in where I'm spending this, and it's going to yield certain results. I think the biggest trap with marketing, and it's not like the world of marketing's fault, but sometimes it can be hard to track the results, right? But there should be some like zooming out and like assessing the success of a campaign. And we do that with a lot of times with our clients. Like a lot of times there's underperforming practices. They need more patients in the door. It's like, okay, let's juice up the marketing, and with the intent of getting more patients in the door.
Got it. And the last question I had for you, if you had one piece of financial advice to give to a dentist trying to better understand what's going on, what would that be?
Well, if I had one financial piece of advice, just in general, it would be to not live a large lifestyle. I think that's the single biggest trap that you could have. And read The Psychology of Money. Read that book. It's a great book. But to understand your numbers, I think you got to have, you got to spend the time, and you got to figure out what your overhead is, figure out how much you're spending personally each month, and just, spend the time to figure out what you really need to be making each month so that all these things can make sense. And there's scenarios where you don't have to change your lifestyle, where you can keep living that lifestyle and everything makes sense. But you just need to know what those numbers are.
Got it. Makes complete sense. Travis, we're running out of time, but is there anything that we didn't talk about yet that you wanted to make sure to cover in the time that we had available?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we covered those main points. So that's good.
Okay, so we're going to do a lightning round Q&A. Pull up my little app called Poddex, and we're going to do our business-related questions. Lightning round, fast answers. Okay. First question: if you were to do your business go over again, what would you start with differently? What would you do differently?
Is this assuming like I'm a dental practice?
No. This is in your business that you're in right now.
Oh, if I would start over again?
Yeah. Yep.
I would probably take out a loan and be more aggressive on my marketing. I would market myself more.
Okay. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
Probably my grandpa.
Okay. What do you think a unique skill that you have that has helped you become successful?
I feel like I'm not that smart. And so when it comes to like figuring out problems, I have to work harder, and I feel like it allows me to speak more basic to clients and at a level that clients understand, because I'm not some guru. I spend the time to understand it, and then I can speak to people at a better, like,
got it,
eye to eye. Yeah.
What have you learned from the most successful person you know?
Put your family first. No success is better than being with your family.
Okay. What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
I built a pretty big operation during COVID to do these tax credits, and it was a big endeavor, massive endeavor, and we built a phenomenal product to help people with these COVID tax credits. We helped thousands of businesses. The work product was great. We just built this great machine. It was extremely satisfying to kind of lead that and build a great process and product for during COVID.
Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of CPAs in the industry. How do you distinguish yourself from your competitors?
Well, I'm not 80 years old. Just joking. There are projected to be a lot of accountants retiring in the next little while, and no new accountants want to be accountants. There's a shortage in the space. But no, I think what it is for me, I literally worked in a dental practice, and I know what it's like to be a practice owner as much more than any other CPA out there. And so all of our solutions are designed to solve the problems that you have as a practice owner.
Awesome. How do you capture and keep track of ideas? Do you keep a notebook? Do you do voice memos?
I have a notebook, which I lost yesterday, and it's driving me crazy.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to find something that will make sense here. Let's see. How many hours a day do you work on average?
My wife doesn't like this answer, but right now I'm averaging probably a good 12 hours a day.
Okay. What profession do you think is the most undervalued today?
Accounting.
Okay. Use 3 adjectives to describe your strengths.
3 adjectives. Kind, is that an adjective? Timely, and passionate.
Okay. Last question, I ask this to every guest. What is one subscription, so something you pay on a monthly basis or an annual basis, could be business or personal, okay, that you can't live without? So a subscription that you pay for that you cannot live without.
Yeah.
Business or personal.
That's interesting. I don't feel like I have a lot of subscriptions that I could live without, but there is a fitness app that I have called Fitness Culture, and it's so stinking expensive. It's too expensive, but I try to cancel it every few months, and then I resubscribe because I just clearly can't live without it. But
all right. And you said it was called Fitness
Culture.
Fitness Culture.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
It's just like, it tells you, it's like you go to the gym, it tells you exactly what workouts to do, what reps to do, how much to do. It's just like, it's like a personal trainer. on your phone. And I've tried other ones. It's just, in my opinion, it's been the best.
All right, awesome. So this was great. Thank you so much. How can people reach out to you? Do you have an offer to the viewing or listening audience that you want to throw out there? But how can they reach out to you? Give your contact information. So if someone's listening to this and they think you can help them, they can reach out.
Yeah, so you can email me, Travis at uluruadvisors.com, and we'll have it in the show notes. You could also do gouluru.com. That's shorter. But Travis at uluruadvisors.com. Feel free to send me any questions that you have. And there's going to be, you can download this matrix to help you kind of understand your own numbers. And we will do, if there's 2 people, we'll do up to 2 people. If you want us to do this for you and help walk you through your matrix and numbers to help you understand what your break even is, if you're like, I just want to know, but I need some help because it does require some work, we will do that for up to 2 people that reach out, the first 2 people.
Awesome. Well, this is great content, a lot of information for those to listen to and understand for their own practice. If you like the episode, please refer your friends and colleagues to it. Tell them all about the Raving Patients Podcast. If you think Travis may be helpful to them, refer them to Travis. He gave his contact information. In the show notes, you'll be able to link to this calculator as well. So make sure you grab that as well. Remember to check out my sponsors, both at Dental Intelligence and CallRail. Remember my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, September 26th and 27th. You can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and use the code RAVING to save $100 on your registration. And as I end every single one of my episodes, remember, your reputation matters. Travis, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you. See ya.